G'day and welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to bring a rifle scope review to you. That would be on this new NX8 rifle scope from Nightforce. This is the 2.5 to 20. They also do a 4 to 32, but this is the 2.5 to 20, 50mm first focal plane rifle scope in MOA. And I suppose I've done a bit of a shoot. I'll go through that a little bit. I've got it here dressed up in the form I actually used it. I'll strip it back down right while we're here as to what the rifle scope really is. I've got the sunshade and a dust cover on the front of it. Let's pull that off, set that there. Just got that loose enough to be able to pull that off the back there. Okay, so that's this little scope that's sitting here in the middle. I suppose I'll go through the basics of it. Nightforce were looking at bringing a scope to do as much as they could in a small and lighter package as they could make it be. The logic with that really is a bit more of a scope that can do everything at a reasonable sort of a price point. And what we're talking about there is something that can be really, and probably for the first time I've seen in the Nightforce range, have they done it quite so comprehensively, something that really can be a hunting optic and can be a long range optic and can be PRS or competition optic in the way of doing all the bits and pieces. To try and make that happen, they have used the advantage in the NX8. The whole logic to that is that it is actually at 8 times, so at 2.5 to 20, so there's 8 times power ranges in there, or the 4 to 32, same thing, it's got the 8 times improvement. Okay, so that was one part of it, and the logic in there is that you're going to be able to get a very small run at low power, so hunting and that side of things is where you really want that, with a very big field of view, and be able to get it right back for low light and that sort of stuff, where things will be able to work well at low power and still be able to wind in where you got good power for your long range shots or your precision shots and that side of things.
Tricky.
And the other thing they're trying to do in that is keep it as light as possible. And take up as little room as possible. So that's really what they've done here in this format by having it light. It's I'll put the weight on the screen, but it is a nice light scope in the way for what its size is. As you can see, it is a very short scope. To me, and I'll say straight up, what I saw on that side of things is that it looks a bit offset, having a slightly longer on the rear here and shorter on the front. What Nightforce have actually done here is gone to the minimum size they can and make everything work properly. And I suppose that'll go a bit in the details. By reducing it, they've got their weight down. I think all their strengths and all that sort of stuff are the same, but by reducing the size, you've lost weight. As you saw when I shot it, I put a sunshade on it, put the dust cover back on it, very little weight in these, but it started to look like a normal scope again. But the extra logic they went to go with this is by shrinking it down, they wanted to keep their optical quality as high as they could. They're using ED glass, so it's the same glass. Essentially the glass side of things, the same qualities as what you're going to find in their attacker range or in all that sort of fairly high level scopes, is it's the same quality of glass. There is a little bit of a compromise by squishing it back down into such a short scope. You lose a little bit of image quality, I'm told. I can't actually say that I can see it or pick it up myself. But they've gone to where they've made it, well, I suppose what I've heard other reviewers say that the image quality is a little bit compromised. I can't honestly say that I saw any compromising in it. And I'll get into what I felt in the way of shooting it down the track, or way of using it, but I was very comfortable with it. It was just like using one of my attackers. I was very happy with it. I suppose this is a first focal plane scope, and my immediate thought of going first focal plane over 8 times power was, what is the reticle going to be like? How much reticle? We're going to have a big fat reticle in our road to be able to see it down the bottom, or if we're going to have a good reticle and not be able to see it down the bottom at all. Yeah, I suppose. And so what they actually did there, and the logic, which I quite like, and I found work quite well. The reticle is a nice size reticle. It's a nice thing. Even on full power, it's at a nice place. It's not too big. It is very, very defined, and I'll put some images on here where it is still actually discernible. You can still use it at its lowest power, but I got to tell you, you're pushing the boundaries. You'd want to have very good light and a very clean background to use it down there. Really, I found once you're back down at about 8 power, which is about as low as I would normally shoot in any format for any normal sort of shooting, the reticle is still very usable. Once you went below 8 power and you're going into the 6s and 4s and 2.5 in this, then you're down to where you're after a lot of field of view, and to be truthful, it's not getting to the point where the reticle is going to operate properly down there, not for my eyes anyway. But what they've designed this for, and to be truthful, where you're largely going to go back there is in a hunting situation. So you're coming back to low light where it's early in the morning, late in the evening, nighttime I suppose as well, but really more that for the way I do things, it's more that stuff where the animals are moving. It's in that dusk and dawn side of things. And they've set it up to the way the illumination on this, so the way it lights up the reticle in the center there, means that then you really can go right back to 2.5 power. So you're talking almost no power, great big field of view, and you have a very definite nice reticle in the middle there to be able to use. It's not crowded, it's not lighting up stuff with the likes of the Christmas trees and that sort of stuff where you got a lot of other things going on. This is a nice simple set of crosshairs it turns into, back down on the lowest power, and it meant I found that really nice to be able to pick up and engage and do that sort of stuff there. So that really worked. I've just taken video of the red illumination. There's green in there as well. Obviously depend on your background and what you're using and that side of things. But I think that combination came together and worked really well. I suppose, listen, that's the basic features. Like I said, 2.5 to 20 power. It runs, as you can see, I've stripped it back down to where it's basic. It's got the normal focus ring on the back here, so the diopter focus has a little locking system. It's locked. I'll undo that. So it has a little locking ring on the front here where you set that up. So that all works like it should do. You have the option of putting a throw lever on here. I found that tension of this is about right for I want it, where I'm not desiring a throw lever, but you have that option there if you want to. It has a screw-on cap. Under here is the smaller in the way of the little dial to your turret to be able to adjust things. Worked really well. And in our shooting of this, I decided to use this really more the way it's designed to be used. I zeroed it, made sure it was properly zeroed. We did a bit of messing around our target in the dark in the morning actually to make sure it was all zeroed. Then I put it on here, and for the rest of the day I went through and just held my wind. I wasn't holding over 4 MOA for the wind side of things, even out at 1200 yards, and then just dialed from elevation. Found it worked really nicely. Really like the reticle. It's very much like most of the Nightforce reticles. I'm very familiar with them. I like them. And I suppose I would say that, and at that point I would also say, I am very familiar with the Nightforces. I really like them. So I may be a little biased. It's not consciously being that way at all. I did find it very familiar. The eye box to me is very forgiving. The optical quality of it is very much what I'm accustomed to and used to. I always really liked it. The reticle's super clear, but like I said, I would stress that I really like them. To the point where Nightforce have helped us out. I have here for 2 reasons. This is the 7x35 in one of the ones that runs in, which this scope here was given to us by Nightforce a little bit because of how much we've used their product and how much, I suppose, advertising they've already got from what we do use in the way of using their Nightforce scopes, but it was also to help us out with our long shot. So with our 5,000 yard attempt, 5K attempt, they actually gave us this scope. So there is a little bit of where they've done the right thing by us. You take that as you want to take it. I don't like to put this forward as biased. I want to put forward something that I am 100% sure people are going to be happy with. So a little bit for a disclosure, but the other side of it was to do the comparison in the way of the length. This is 7x35. It's just got its caps on it. No dust, no sunshade at all, and you can see the comparison in length of the scopes is quite dramatically a small scope and worked really nicely. Once you obviously screw on the sunshade onto it, it comes into sort of a standard looking scope. It centers everything up. It looked really good, but equally for after that minimum of size and weight, they are a nice little scope. That really, where else can I go with it? I found both in using, like I said, very familiar, but one of the things I really like about Nightforce, always have, is the flexibility you've got in the way of the its iBox, not a term I really use, but being able to get on it and get a full picture I find very easy, very comfortable with that side of things. What I did find in the way of checking parallax, and I checked it a few times through there, was very flexible. The field of view they seem to have managed to gain in this combination was really broad. I found I just didn't have to mess with that very much at all, and that was shooting from 400 yards out to 1200 yards. I was adjusting things but really wasn't finding a different place. I was finding it was very comfortable and very clear all the way through that sort of range. I'd have to spend a bit more time to find out how big and broad that actually is. But I found that depth of view, so how long it was focused for, was really, really nice. The other feature about this, I found that basically being able to pick up the target in being able to come back to that 2 power or come back to 4 power and roll back and be able to scan around the place is really good. And a normal thing you get out of a scope where you can go down in that power, but I'm not used to being able to crank up that far with the 8 power on it, with the 8 times zoom on it, and be able to come back up to 20 power, which was nice to be able to zone in a little bit closer when I wanted to. I suppose that's about the list of bits and pieces with it. I suppose for the mandate, or for what they were trying to do, build a scope that was more flexible and capable of doing more things, I think they really nailed it. I really do think it's come into the place where it does that really well. Would I replace it with probably my favourite scope? The 7x35 is sort of, but really the 5x25 is my favourite in the Attacker. And no, it doesn't do that. There is probably that extra power for the bigger stuff, but really I sort of like my bigger scope on that side of things. But to be truthful, that's more of a personal thing. I couldn't really tell much in the way of image from what I was doing. I was really happy with the way this performed, and I think if you're after a scope to do one size fits all, in the way of do a lot of things with it, come back and do it and use as a hunting scope, and be able to also go and do, whether it's a PRS competition or it's going to do what we do and shoot at extreme long range. I should say this one has 110 minutes of elevation, so it doesn't quite win that little argument. The Attacker with the 5x25 having the 120 minutes wins, and that's sort of been the standard for everything. But other than that, listen, did the job really well, really happy with it. Anyway guys, let us know any comments you got to go with that. I was very happy with this little scope. I might see if we can get across the 4x32. I don't really expect any differences. I think it's a tiny bit longer, it's a tiny bit more even in the way it's spaced out. But like I said, when you dress this scope up, let me do that carefully. When you dress this scope up, it comes back to a normal looking scope, which you'll see on the video we had out there. Performed really, really well. Very happy working with it. Might be a little bit biased. Like I said, I'm definitely a Nightforce fan, but I was very comfortable and would be very happy giving it to lending it to the shooting team and knowing I'm not compromising them whatsoever at all. Anyway guys, let us know any comments. Thanks for checking in on us. We'll catch you next time.